Hi, I'm Emma, a medical doctor, a survivor of domestic violence and narcissistic abuse. It's been a while since I felt a real strong feeling of shame, but I can still remember how it felt. It is like a burning in my chest, and it feels like my body is a prison and very strong feelings inside that I can barely bear, but at the same time, this paralyzing feeling that there is no escape from it. Shame has played a major part in my life, in the life decisions that I have made. And I will tell you about how that played in, where the shame came from, and how I have been able to overcome it. This is quite a personal episode, and I feel that many of my videos has been, but still I'm not afraid to share. I don't think that I will regret doing so, and even if I'm made fun of or like if people see this, I will not be ashamed. I am not ashamed anymore, and that actually feels really liberating. Shame has been a part of my life since I was a young girl. It is one of the first feelings, like the strong feelings that I can remember. I was the oldest of I was the oldest of 4 siblings. So when I was 6 years old, I already had 3 younger siblings. My parents both, well, my father was a policeman to start with, but then both my parents went to law school. So my mother started to study when they had 2 kids, and so she did that like at the same time as they were still creating us. And I remember as a 6-year-old being left at home by my mother to take care of my 3 younger siblings after she had shown me how to change the baby's diaper, my little baby brother. So it would happen that she had to go to a lecture, or and I would be in charge of being the babysitter for my younger siblings. At this age, I could already make pancakes, so I made pancakes for us to eat. And I took a large responsibility for taking care of things at home. My parents were in financial strain. My father worked away a lot, and my mother was often angry with me. I can't remember that she ever hugged me or told me that she loved me. When she would change the baby's diaper and she would like kiss him on his belly, I would feel a jealousy because she cuddled the baby, but she never did that with me. Often it would happen that I did something and that my mother discovered, and she shamed me and told me that what I had done was stupid. So I remember trying to I was supposed to clean my room one day, and I got lost in like arranging. I had this stone collection, so I got lost in arranging all the stones on the desk or the table that was in the room. And then I was really proud of how beautiful I had made it on the little table, and I went to get my mother and see how beautiful I had made it, and she became really, really angry and told me, like, what have you been doing in here for so long? You have not still cleaned your room and you never listen. I remember a feeling of not being enough and like being misunderstood. She would scream at me until I cried, and when I cried, she would tell me that you are crying, and that's a proof that you are wrong. So you're crying because you have done something bad. I carried this. I was never successful in making her approve, at least not like in the long run. When I did things to help, I would get a word of appreciation, and that became really important for me. So I did put in a lot of effort in becoming good and doing things, and like that was my way to get appreciation. I did start to read early, so at 4 years of age, I started to read, like by sitting next to my father when he would read the newspaper. I would point at different letters, and then I started to write and read quite early. So I was able to start school at 6, like at 6 years of age, I could start the first grade. So it was a year earlier than the other kids in my class. And I'm also born in August, so I was like 1 year or 1 year and 8 months younger than some of them. We moved quite a bit in during my childhood, and even though like the schoolwork I could manage, but I was a little immature, I think, and I was also nerdy, so I was spending a lot of time reading. That was my not my only hobby, but that was one of the things that I really enjoyed. And so I became a bit of an outsider. I didn't have that many friends, and then I was actually bullied at one school, both by the teacher. So I had a really mean teacher in like middle school, and by my friends. And I did not tell my parents, but I had a lot of stomach ache, and that like stuck with me, even though when we moved again, I did have some friends, but I was very shy. I was afraid. First of all, I never showed vulnerability. So even if I hurt myself or I had some issue, I never told anyone. So one time this was when I was around 10 years old. We were at the neighbors, and they have this, like the mother in the family asked me to carry this little like sauce. It was not a bowl, but similar to a bowl, but with a little handle, and it was filled with sauce, so very hot. It had just boiled and up to the top, and then I accidentally spilled on my hand, and it was really painful, so I burned all this part of the hand, but I, not wanting to do anything wrong, I still carried it carefully to the table outside on the porch and put it down. And then I ran to the toilet, not telling anyone, not making a sound, and just put water on my hand. So I kept a lot of things inside. I would not say my opinion if it was conflicting with one of my friends. I would just agree. And let's see what else. Yeah, I had a hard time, that is, to share what was happening inside of myself. So I did this behavior to stay safe, and I believe that would keep me being appreciated. My mother was quite authoritarian, and she had a lot of rules, very high demands on me. And as I was getting older, I felt that I was not allowed to grow up. So when I needed my first bra, I had to ask, being very embarrassed, and then I had to ask for it, and then I had got to get some old clothes from a relative. But like I was still wearing boys' clothes that we got like from relatives that had a boy. So I had those clothes on to school, and well, my mother wouldn't let me like go into the big town with friends. So the kid in my age or in my class would be allowed to do things, but I wasn't. This built up deep frustration in me, and like at the summer between, like just before I turned 15, I did this huge rebellion against, well, mainly my mother. My father was just following her lead, so to speak. And it was actually like it started after we had this, like the class had a party to celebrate that we had finished part of like our education, and there I got to taste alcohol. So that really gave me like a feeling of calm and a bit of a kick. And we do have alcoholism in our family, so and I know that perhaps that's why I reacted so strongly, but that sort of sparked something, and I started to attend parties, and I started to like sneak out of my window, living on the bottom floor, like not telling my parents, and I got myself into dangerous situations, and there were older guys involved. But so what? Firstly, like I think I rebelled, but also I was starting to become older, and I noticed that like boys think that I look really beautiful and I'm getting attention. So I will put a picture here. You can see how I looked when I was younger. That was really exciting. So I think it's the same dynamic that some, well, mainly boys, but they describe like if they had come from live like a family or a younger years where they felt ashamed, and if they had not been appreciated, then they will sometimes get into a gang situation, like being a part of a gang, because that really feels like there is a sense of brotherhood and belonging, and they feel appreciated, and that's sort of what I was looking for. So this period of me like rebelling, we had a lot of arguments. I would like run out from home and disappear and stay away, and then I still actually managed school, so but school was never hard for me. So I liked school, but I went to most of the classes. But at home it was a lot of arguments, and my mother tried to shame me and blame me and told all of our relatives how horrible I was. I did ask her, I told her once that I am not feeling good. I would like to talk to someone, like a psychologist. And she ignored that. That resulted in her contacting the social services and forcing me to go in and take drug tests every day, not every day, like every week for a period. I think it was perhaps a few months. That was very, very shameful, because that involves like you having to leave urinary sample, and someone has to watch you leave it so that there is no cheating. That was very shameful for a 15-year-old. On the fall, like right after I turned 15, I actually became ill. And I believe that this was an intervention from above. So I was really on a wrong and dangerous path, and like the illness helped me to get out of that. But I will tell you what happened. So I started at this point. I had a boyfriend, like a Swedish guy, who was 2 years older than me, but it wasn't really serious. We had not known each other for that long, but I started to have these numbing feelings in my feet, like firstly in my toes and then in my feet, and then like the numbing spread up the leg, and I started to have problems walking. When my parents took me to the healthcare center, and they called the ambulance and took me to the hospital, and this paralysis continued to spread, and when it was at its worst, then I had a numbing feeling up to here, and I couldn't walk, so I had to use a wheelchair. And this is called, what I had was Guillain-Barré syndrome. So it's inflammation in the peripheral nerves. So from the brain, then the signals go down in the spine, and then from there are nerves going out to all parts of the body. And around the nerves there is myelin sheets, like it's equal to the isolation on cable, so that makes the signal like continue like along the neuron, because some of the neurons have really long like strings. Like if you go from the spine onto the foot, that's quite a bit, and it has to be isolated so that the signal doesn't disappear. So it was an inflammation in that isolation, and the inflammation destroyed the isolation. So that's why it started from the toes, because those are the longest nerves. It took a while for them to diagnose me and start treatment, and then it took a while for my body to recover. So this was really a scary situation, and I missed part of school. My boyfriend broke up with me at the hospital. So like I was a bit excited that I was gonna get a visitor, and it was him. And then I remember that just lifting my arm was really hard, but I did it just to try to brush my hair. And then he came in and he told me that it's over. I don't know, he could have said it on the phone. He didn't need to come. But I'm over that. But it was a bit mean. So it took a while for me to recover. When I did go back to school, I still walked a bit, like I couldn't go full days. And then when I would get tired, I would have trouble walking. So I walked a bit funny. And of course, that brought with it shame. This is a time like after I had just recovered. That's when I met the man who would be my future husband. He told me that he was 19 when we met, and I was introduced to him. We were going to this party, and I was introduced to him, and we were. He was really like attentive and nice, and we exchanged phone numbers, and we started to date. My parents didn't approve because he was not originally from Sweden, but I, being rebellious, insisted, and I went out anyway to see him. And what really got me hooked into this guy was actually like, and I can't remember the exact moment that I felt like this is it. And it was, we had a fight because when I told you about me getting into dangerous situations with some older guys, he had heard about that. So, and he told me that I was disgusting and some horrible things, and then like, why didn't you tell me that you're that kind of girl? And so he sort of tried to dump me, or I don't know if it was a manipulation. I felt really, really horrible, and then he was going to drive me home. And then he did this shift. So it activated that deep sense of shame over myself and regret about the situations I had got myself into. But then he became really, really nice, and he told me that I love you. So he saved me from that shame. And like never having succeeded in getting my mom to understand my point of view when we would have, like, I recognized that feeling, like being really put down, but it was never resolved, but suddenly it was. So he resolved it, and he saved me from this feeling. And I mistakenly took that for love, and I took his intense interest and courting for love, because I didn't know real love. Like, for example, the boyfriend that I had, like we were just seeing each other, and like things were going slow, and I wasn't sure if he liked me. But this was not like the complete other feeling with this guy. Like he really seemed to like me, and he really seemed invested. So I thought that this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want, and I have to now keep him. So I have to be the perfect girlfriend, and I have to almost like make up for this part, like for the mistakes that I have made, even though that was before we met. I had to prove myself to be worthy of him. And he would later, like, our relationship lasted for 21 years. And that would be a deep point of shame for me, like what I did before we met. And when we would argue, he would point that out to me, that like he regretted meeting me, and that I was a bad woman. And I was hoping that I would be able to show him that I wasn't, and that I was faithful to him, and I was faithful to him for 21 years. And but, well, it was a manipulation, so, but I didn't see that. It later turned out, like after several months of dating him, it turned out that he was older than he had said, so he had lied to me. He was 28, so he was 13 years older. At this point, I was really in love with him, and like I wouldn't have gotten into a relationship with him if I had known his age, but I stayed in the relationship because of that feeling of being accepted and loved. So things changed, like the dynamics of our relationship has shifted during the years. So when I got older, like I didn't realize how much of an age difference it was until I was 28. So when I was his age, and then I would look at 15-year-olds and think, like, this is really off. And I would keep it a secret, like his age, I would keep it a secret from my friends. He looked really young, and he looked good, so I wouldn't say his age. No one would guess that he was like that much older than me. And I thought that, like, I didn't judge him for getting into a relationship with me, because I thought that he had fallen in love with me. Like, this was love beyond the age difference. I continued this relationship, and I continued. Like, my parents eventually accepted it, but they didn't meet him until like 6 years. When we'd been together for 6 years, they met him for the first time. So I first, like, after I think it's called high school here, I started university, first the pharmacology program, and then I started med school. And part of what made me choose medicine, first it was my interest. So I really liked university, and I liked to learn and read, and like the whole atmosphere there. And but it was also like, if I become a doctor, then that is like sign that I am good. And when I did get accepted to med school, I got a phone call from my mother, and she said that I love you. And that was the first time I had ever heard that, and it almost made me drop the phone. It was a bit too late. But part, like shame, like trying to beat that shame, trying to be worthy, was part of what made me go into medicine. And like telling people that you are in med school makes them think a bit highly of you and treat you a bit better, even though it shouldn't be. Like, we are all humans. But at this point in my life, that felt really good, because that like eased some of the feelings of not being enough. So I would really like to get like compliments or appreciation, or people saying how good I was. I would really like that. So I think it was like a bit of narcissism there, actually, even though I never tried to get feel like, I never tried to ease my shame by trying to put someone else down. I did try to ease my shame, like and control people in the opposite way. Like by doing things for them, I would try to control their view of me and try to get their love. So, and during my studies at university, I also started to believe really strongly in God. So my family is not religious. I have had a sense, like from when I was a young girl, that there is something higher than us. But at university, when I started to read cell biology at the pharmacology program, that is when I realized that, like, okay, so evolution, Darwin's theory. Human came from ape from lower standing animal, from fish, from little water creatures, and from cells. Okay, so the first thing that was the first thing that came into being was a cell. But the cell is really, really complicated. I spent a whole year studying cell biology, and it has this membrane consisting of phospholipids, and then there are different organelles inside the cell. Some of them are involved in energy production. Some of them are involved in making proteins. Some of them are involved in replicating and fixing the DNA. And the cell, like, besides having to sustain itself, like getting energy, fixing things in the cell, and it also has to be able to replicate. So it has to be able to make an exact copy of itself. So it has a little copying machinery inside, and then split the cell into two. This is supposed to have happened like in a mud pit. How many times could that have happened? Like the parts coming together, and then suddenly it is alive. and it is perfect and it's able to replicate, that's a miracle. I also began to think about the Big Bang theory, like the universe coming from nothing and expanding, and the planets, the stars, the sun created, the earth at a perfect distance from the sun, circulating around in a year, but at the same time turning around its axis so that we have night and day. And like the perfect conditions for life, just like that, just like out of nothing. And that made me really certain that we're not here as a coincidence. There is a creator. So it has to be true that God spoke the world into existence by just saying, be. So I started to believe in God. Christianity, I thought it was silly. I didn't quite understand the concept. We didn't go to church. But my partner, my boyfriend, was a Muslim. And I also had a friend in my class, we were close friends, and she was a Muslim. And so I started to read about Islam. And I was like, it is a really, like the logic of the, like it sounds really logical when you are introduced to it. So if it is a creator, then like if he wants something from humanity, he should have sent a book. He should have sent a message, like a clear one. And so Islam claims that the Quran is the word of God that is like transferred through a human being. And like the book itself, it is a miracle, and it is the only word that God, like the only rules or like the only speech of God that is saved to this date. So I became a Muslim, and at first it felt really good because now I had rules to follow that I could tell me when I was doing bad or when I was doing good. So I knew what rules to follow to be a good person. And that meant that, like, if I'm good, then I don't have to feel shame. So if I just do this and this and this, and then I will be a good person. And I will be like a morally high. This is simple rules to follow that will make me good. Now as time goes on, I'm not able to follow the rules. And like there are many, many, many small rules. So when you start to follow the big ones, then you discover that there are always more points to follow, and you become really nitty-gritty. Like when you are able to follow everything, then you feel a bit like, oh, I'm superior because I'm following the moral code. And when you see people not doing it, you get a bit harsh or judgmental. And when you are failing, then like the shame is really big, because now God will not speak to you for like he will not look at you, and so there is no acceptance of failure. Like you have no excuse for failing to follow the rules. So like at first it was a protection against shame, but actually it became like even more shameful because I couldn't follow it. And eventually I did leave. I stopped believing. I looked into more of the evidence, like I became a bit wiser, and I can't tell you more like the exact things that made me leave, because I think it's quite enough that there is one person out to kill me. In 2017, like I have tried for many years, 14 years, at that point with my husband. We had married. It was like religious wedding in a mosque. And I tried very, very hard to be the perfect wife, to like win his affection. But after 2 kids in 2017, he started to, like, there was a shift in our relationship, a very clear one. He started to withdraw more, treat me very poorly. He disappeared, he lied, he cheated. And this, like when I actually diagnosed him, I realized that this is narcissism. This was, my kids were 2 years. My son just turned 2, or he was about to turn 2. It was the same month that he had his birthday. My daughter was 3 months, and my husband had said that I'm going to visit a friend that lives in another town of Sweden. I will be there for 3 days. And he told me the name of the friend. I'd met this man before. He then went, like he was going to fly with an airplane. It was a few hours away. Or it was several hours by driving. I think it's 1 hour, 1 or 2 with airplane. After he landed, like I didn't get the message that he had landed. And I tried calling him, and a whole day passed. And like eventually I got really worried. I was thinking that something happened to him. I actually tried to check, like he had iPhone. I tried to log in to find my iPhone because I had a password, but his phone was turned off, or that it couldn't find it. And I sent him several messages, tried to call, and I sent the message like, because when he went, I had a suspicion that he wasn't going to his friend because I sensed that he was lying actually. And I also had he had been texting with, he had been chatting on dating sites. So like I was afraid that something had happened, but at the same time I was like afraid that he might be cheating on me. And so I sent him a message like, are you like, no, sorry. I firstly called the friend. So I didn't have his number, but I Googled his name and I got his phone number, and I called the friend that he had said that he was going to visit, and he was caught off guard, and he's like, oh no, he's not here. And I can hear in his voice that he was like very surprised that I called, and he didn't want to tell me that my husband had lied. So he was like, yeah, he's not here right now, but I could hear in his voice that he was lying. I will have him call you, he said. And then he hung up, and I sent a text to my husband, like, I know you're not there. I know you're lying. Are you seeing another woman? You have, or have something happened, you have to answer me, or I will call the police and report that you are missing, because it had gone more than 24 hours. And then I got a message back, and it said, knock it off. And that message really shocked me. Like, I thought that he loved me. I thought that he would take care of me. And now, like, who writes that to their wife after they have disappeared? And I tried to call him, he didn't answer. And he was gone for 2 days after that. And then he came home and he refused to tell me where he had gone. And then he did this show and he started to cry, and like, I can't tell you, but like, I have not been cheating on you. But during those days, like after I got that horrible text, then I realized that something is wrong. Something is very, very wrong. And I don't know what I searched for, but I don't know where it came. I have also studied psychiatry, but I don't think that's what... Something at least clicked, and I realized that this is narcissistic personality disorder probably. But I also realized that like the way that I'm approaching our relationship is also like my way of handling things are the mirror opposite. So I'm a codependent, and it sort of made my like the it made the bottom fall out of my world, because that was the way that I had been living my whole life. And I went through like, so 2 more days before it came. They were really, really dark, and I went through something, I can't even explain it, but like it made me, like my identity was just crushed. Like everything I had been basing my life on, and my aims and everything was like just like that, destroyed. It is called an ego death in the psychodynamic language, and it's also called the dark night of the soul. When you go through this, like your ego is dying, or the world that you have been building up has like just disappeared. So, and I did forgive him, or I did take him. I didn't forgive him. I was actually like quite. It took me many months, and I couldn't let this go. And I would like bring it up again and tell him that he had hurt me. Like I never felt. I couldn't let go of it, and this was what I talked about in other videos, that we had a really, really violent period, and it ramped up during this period, and eventually, there was physical abuse, and I almost lost my life. So this was very hard period of my life. I decided, like I made the decision that like something is really off in our interaction, and my way of relating to the whole world is very, very off. I did not want to give up on our marriage, because I did think that I still thought that he loved me. When he would show the like good side, I really felt loved. I have never felt that loved in my whole life. And I realized that like if he has a problem, then I have I have an equally big problem, because I'm a codependent. So if he is like handling relationships in a negative way, then I am also doing that, even though it's like the polar opposite. So it's the mirror image. Like during this phase, I had left Islam, and I struggled to find meaning. And this is when I discovered the Bible. So I started to read parts of the Bible, especially the Psalms, and I wrote what King David had written. I will read a part of it to you. My heart is in anguish within me. The terrors of death have fallen on me. Fear and trembling have beset me. Horror has overwhelmed me. I said, "Oh, that I had the wings of a dove. I would fly away and be at rest. I would flee far away and stay in the desert. I would hurry to my place of shelter, far from the tempest and storm. If an enemy were insulting me, I could endure it. If a foe were rising against me, I could hide. But it is you, my companion, my close friend. My companion attacks his friends. He violates his covenant. His talk is smooth as butter, yet war is in his heart. His words are more soothing than oil, yet they are drawn swords. I thought it was amazing that in the Bible, that's not a book of perfect people. King David did wrong things. He did sinful things. And he shared that feeling of anguish and sadness and grief and anger and all the feelings that my husband's betrayal brought up in me. And God listened to David. He didn't judge him. And in Christianity, God is even entering into the world to help us, because the world can be a very painful place, and there is a lot of suffering here. So that thought really comforted me. So starting to read the Bible was part of what gave me hope, like hope that things can be better, that there is a force of goodness and a force that can heal, that God might accept me even with all the wrong things and me being so imperfect. My interactions with my husband also became so painful and violent, and I had to I started to disengage a bit with him. Like before, when we had arguments, I would also become extremely anxious. I would go fully out into them and be very affected by his moods. I could not do that when I had my kids. I could not be that involved in our relationship, like to the point where I forgot everything else in the whole world but him, and obsessed with him and was filled with anxiety. I had to keep the everyday together for my kids. So I made a conscious decision that I have to detach from him. I can't be this affected by our arguments, and also it had become dangerous. I tried to find other ways to deal with the relationship. I was hoping for improvement. And years went by. I slowly began to rebuild myself and to find different ways to relate with my husband. I started to build some small boundaries, like I would remove myself from conflict. Like having boundaries was something I had never experienced. I used to be at the mercy of like the people I loved. I was at their mercy. Like I couldn't say no, and but I started to say no. I started to remove myself from the argument, and that like started to build some feeling of safety inside myself. Like I don't have to be that anxious or worried for his reaction, because I can protect myself. I also started to work. 2018 in the fall, I started to work first as a junior doctor and then the basic training, and I started to build some confidence in my work. This confidence was not the confidence that I used to have before I went through this ego death. So I used to be very dependent on other people to tell me that I was doing good things. I did not care about that. Not as much, not closely as much as I had when I was younger. I started to have some sort like a feeling inside myself that I did my best, and I did quite good. Like I started to compare myself to others in more of a healthy way. So I'm doing okay, and that was enough. Like I didn't have to take others' reactions into account all the time. I didn't have to derive my sense of self from how others reacted to me. And eventually I did start to question my husband more internally. Like internally, I started to question the actions that he took, and it took me a long time to take the decision to leave. I did not want my kids to grow up like I did not want them to grow up in a home that wasn't a complete family. I didn't want to admit defeat, that like he wasn't changing and I couldn't make it work. And I still thought that if I just do a little better, like it has to work out, I just have to try more. And I still had a feeling of shame, even though not as intense. And he would make me feel ashamed many times. He would make me feel ashamed of decisions I have taken. And I started to become really uncertain when it came to making decisions in my private life. So I would refer to him, I would ask him, because I got huge anxiety from trying to make small decisions, because then afterwards he would tell me how poor they were, and I would feel really ashamed, like, oh, I didn't think about that. How could I have missed that? I'm so dumb, and I would feel ashamed. Even after the separation, I still had that feeling of shame, like, well, during the last part of the relationship, I felt ashamed that I was being treated this way. So, but I had like a huge feeling of shame when I tried to do something for myself. If I tried to sit down and relax, I felt ashamed that I wasn't able to do something useful with myself. After the separation, I didn't have like clothes that fit me. I just had like a pair of pants and a shirt that fit me. And well, my husband refused to let me buy clothes in the last part of our relationship was horrible, and there was another episode where that became extremely dangerous. But after the separation, I did go to the store by myself to try to buy clothes, and it was like I had a really hard time like going in there and picking out clothes for myself, and I was like feeling that I was almost waiting for him to jump on me and tell me how stupid and selfish I was for buying something for myself when I have kids that I need to take care of. And this feeling actually still sticks with me. Like in the beginning, I told you that, oh, I'm not feeling ashamed, but yeah, it sticks with me, this feeling that soon I will discover how stupid I am, and I will regret something that I have done. And what also sticks with me is this feeling that I can't really trust myself, can't really trust my perceptions and my views. And like even though I'm reading, I like the Bible, I believe that the Bible is close to what I intuitively think about humanity and how the world works. I can't trust myself to become a Christian. I'm afraid that I will make another poor decision, like just when I went full into Islam. And I have tried to go to church, but I feel out of place there, because I feel that many Christians are dogmatic, and they are just like those Muslims or the Pharisees who are like a bit obsessed with being perfect. And I think that Jesus actually agrees with me in this view, that dogma and shame is taking you away from God. It is taking you away from being your true self and from connecting. I will read to you from Luke chapter 18. This is Jesus speaking. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other tax collector. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed, God, I thank you that I'm not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week and I give a tenth of all I get. But the tax collector stood at a distance. He would not even look up to heaven, but beat his breast and said, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God. Starting this YouTube channel is part of my process in trying to get a grasp again about my reality and putting my thoughts, experiences into words and connecting them with the experiences of others that I have read about, like in books or in science, and I'm trying to make sense of what happened to me. So me sharing this is another part of trying to make sense of what had happened to me. And I want to share it authentically, and my struggle with God is part of that. My struggle with shame is part of that. So if this resonates with you, part of the video, please comment below. I am planning to make a video about shame and like how you raise your kids without shaming them. And I will put that video here at the end when I have created it. So until then, I will just put the playlist. I'm Emma, holding up a light over the bridge. Remember, there is always a way out. There is always a way forward. Please be safe, take care, and have a great day.